the D&D journey of the 5th edition. Join our various gaming groups as we play the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. And maybe just hang out and chat about gaming in general. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, assigned to Ragnarok Story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Hey guys, Jim here with Creative Playing Podcast Network, and joining me today are some friends that we have not had on in way too long. Justin, John, my friends. We need to talk about After Collapse and Palomaran adventures that are happening here and other fun things because, it's been way too long since we've hung out. So Here we are in the COVID world of the first half of 2021. We've all been working on our little projects, making sure we're keeping sane, staying healthy, and doing the different distancings that we have to do to still make sure we game, have fun, get work, make paychecks, all that good stuff. So how are you guys doing?
Pretty good, James. Delighted to be here and eager to get started. Who all is here? Is it just you, me, and Justin, or did I hear another voice in the background?
Well, I'm here, so greetings from the great state of Alaska and a happy apocalypse to everybody.
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and I think you're in Tucson, right, James?
Yep, down here in Tucson. And it looks like it is just the three of us today. A few other invites were sent out, but it looks like we're the only ones that are free this afternoon. So I'll throw it out there. I've been playing more on Twitch than in person because, nobody's actually playing in person and down here in Tucson. We're still avoiding the game store like the plague, except for the going down and supporting your local bookstore. Make sure you go to your game stores and still support them because most of them will have a cool thing where you can call, place an order, walk up and your order's ready and you just swipe or you phone in your credit card and they meet you in the driveway.
Cool.
I completely second that. I live here in Anchorage, Alaska. The 900-pound gorilla in my part of the world is Bosco's Cards and Games, and they have been hit just as hard as anybody else. They do have online ordering options, and as far as I know, they've even got an option where they'll mail it to you, so you don't even actually have to go to the store anymore. But over the last 12 months, yes, our game stores, they have missed us. They have missed our money. And if they were truly honest about it, they have been forced to look at 2021 with completely different marketing plans in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I guess in Phoenix, Arizona, we've been very, very lucky. As I said, for the last 6 to 8 weeks, once a week, I've been actually meeting with some friends and playing Dungeons and Dragons. And yes, we have several stores here in Phoenix, but the best one is certainly I want to throw out a kudos for them. The store that we have that's still around. Yes, a lot of things have been changing, but we have two stores actually, Drawn to Comics, Samurai Comics. These are places where I indulge my guilty pleasure of Marvel Comics, and of course our gaming store. We've had several closed down, but Imperial Outpost Games is still up and running, and yes, it's always very important to go to the game store and buy something there. Yes.
Yeah, definitely try to support your local brick and mortar stores because, comic books and RPGs are one of those things that, when it comes to game stores, comic book stores, they're a great resource that we always miss like crazy when they're not there, and it's one of those things of they can only stay open if we support them. I mean, sure, you can order it on Amazon, but I'd much rather, support a local shop here in town that's not like 30 chain stores. This is a person's livelihood, is their store, and I'd like to know that I'm supporting local.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, speaking of supporting local, Jim, what have you learned from the last 12 months? Because you're about as local as it gets, aren't you?
So supporting local is one of those things that you definitely have to make sure to get word of mouth out there, along the lines of marketing. If folks don't know you're open and folks don't know you're there doing things, it's hard for people to want to shop there,
Yes.
Marketing is king, like everything.
That's why I've invested in a new website. I was talking about the author homepage people, and actually designed websites specifically for authors. Rates are comparable to GoDaddy or some of the others, Wix. You just got to get out online. You've got to participate in as many events as you can. I've actually had the opportunity to sell some books at a couple of real events. Oddly enough, they're pinup events where they have lots of women competing for pinup prizes with motorcycles and classic automobiles everywhere. But hey, there's a crowd. So I get a table, I put out my books, and I'm like, what do you like to read? So,
I mean, it's true. I mean, events are slowly starting to come back, but it's nothing like events were like before. I mean, it's just like Dragon Con this year is again going virtual. So it's one of those of, people are, thankfully with the vaccines being out and all, people are getting, getting the shot, and hopefully we can get back in 2020. But you still got to push, to survive through 2021 to get to 2020.
2022.
2022,
so John,
yeah.
Yeah.
So, John, that is the question. What did you do to survive 2020 when you couldn't go anywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my someone I greatly admire, Cornelius Vanderbilt, he said it the best way you could say it. If you don't sacrifice for what you want will be the sacrifice. So, cutting down on going out to eat a bit, finding a better job. I actually took a pay cut from unemployment, but with careful budgeting, I write. All of 2020 I spent writing. Like I say, I have 2 books all ready to go. When my publisher is ready, my publisher is wonderful, Patty Holstrom. She's put out more than 170, 180 books in the last 5 years, although of course everything slowed down with COVID. And the thing is, she takes care of like 7 or 8 authors. I'm one of them. But we all have to wait our turn. We all have to wait so when we can get her attention. So we all get like 1 book out a year. So I've got 2 books all set and ready to go when it's my turn. So hooray. Yeah. What did I do over 2020? I wrote. Now, should I go into how I write, or
how did you call attention to yourself? Because you and me and Jim, we're all in very similar boats. It's a very crowded ocean out there. So, did you send up a flare? Did you write your Aunt Fanny? Did you advertise on Amazon? What did you do to call attention to yourself that said, "Hey, I'm different than those other guys. Read my stuff."
Right, and that's why I got a new website. And it sounds really aggressive and obnoxious, but I have been posting my website everywhere I can on Facebook, on every group I'm a member of, at the slightest excuse. Oh yeah, check out my website. Yes, I've been kicked off of a couple of groups, but when I'm a member of over like 500 groups. I've joined so many groups on Facebook, I can't keep track of them all. So being bumped from a group here and there, ooh, big deal. Now, Phoenix, Arizona, we have something very special here. The Blue Ribbon Army. Now, what is the Blue Ribbon Army? Phoenix Comic-Con, which has been a Comic-Con titan until COVID, of course, and of course they shut down and do things virtually for now. But for years, Phoenix Comic-Con had this fan group. It literally started off with fans just giving blue ribbons to their friends. And eventually it matured into the Blue Ribbon Army. Now, if you go to Facebook and join them, just tell them you like Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, or Harry Potter, or anything in our special subculture genre.
Don't forget steampunk.
Yep, and steampunk. They will let you join. Now, the virtue of this is the Blue Ribbon Army has over 15,000 members. So if you're careful, like, believe me, they don't like spam. But if I try to do a post like maybe every 2 months or so, and I'm like, hey, look at what I'm doing. Boom, boom, boom. Here's my new website. Boom, 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 boom. And hey, post it and it gets approved. It's seen by 15,000 people. That's just one group on Facebook. So yes, I look for groups that have a lot of members. 2,000, 5,000 or more is preferable. And yes, some people can say, "Oh, that's obnoxious and aggressive." Well, welcome to the age of marketing. You want attention, you got to go out and get it.
Yeah. That is absolutely true, and that is the plain and simple fact. There is no shame, and it runs. It's counterintuitive to all of us, because all of us had our parents tell us, honey, don't slouch. Don't brag either. That's rude. And so we go out into the workaday professional world, especially when we start becoming indie writers. And, you've got your mother's voice in the back of your head nagging all the time. Don't brag, don't brag, don't brag. It's like, Ma, shut up. Okay, so, because this is the thing that you must do, and you got to understand the dirty inside secret. It ain't bragging, because there's a whole world out there that never heard of you. They will not know about you until you type something somewhere in a forum or a format that causes them to say, and who the hell are you? And when there's something for them to click on, then they'll say, oh, okay, because either they're going to like it and they're going to go, oh, I want that. Yeah, because they make their purchasing decisions in 30 seconds or less. Or if they don't like it, it's like, no, next page. And so you're on. So you do have to be somewhat shameless in what you do. And to prove my point, Mr. Podcast here, Jim, how have you kept this podcast relevant through COVID? Because on the one hand, everybody's staying home, and so they can listen to you. But how did you make them know you were out there?
I think the biggest thing has been word of mouth, as well as the social media. It's like whenever a new episode's up, I push out on the social media. Of course, in the last year or so, the algorithms have been really, really, really tight-chested. And the fact that now that YouTube and Facebook are kind of tied in with the same algorithms, that unless you're super relevant and super new and super popular to start with, they don't share your product. So you got to kind of go out to your friends, and like with me, it's usually my fellow gamers. It's like, hey guys, I'm going to post the event when it's coming up, the event when it happens. Can you guys spread that you do this thing when you play, or that you enjoy listening to? It's like everybody knows that crit hit gaming group out there that everybody listens to, but unless you actually share what you like with other folks, the social media machine doesn't work, And, it's just one of those of, it's friends sharing with their friends cool stuff that they like. I mean, hell, that's one of the reasons why we started podcasting in the first part was I see something cool. I want to tell people about this cool stuff that I see, like this great book that I saw, or this great, game material that we came across, and never heard before. So if I share it, somebody else knows that it's out there. Because the problem is, without getting out there, nobody perpetuates it. It's like so many, like different RPGs are out there, like AC After the Collapse, and people are just like, this is really cool when they pick up, they come over and they see me and they pick up the game book sitting there on the shelf saying, I've never seen this one. Pick it up, borrow it. You can buy it on Kindle, and then bring me back my copy. It's one of those of, unless it's out there, and that's a marketing on a personal level. It's like, I had a coach once tell me, a manager, that you need to be your biggest cheerleader, because like in a work setting, here we are working 40 days plus, 40 hours plus a week, and we're doing our job. And when we do our job, nothing is said about it, because we're greasing the gears, we're rolling the wheels, we're pushing the product out and doing what we need to do. It's only when the grease rubs off that gear and it springs off and all kinds of panic happens, that's the only time something gets said, is when things fall apart. So you have to be your biggest cheerleader. So when something comes up cool, you have to say, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. Here's this cool thing. And as makers and, authors, it's the same thing. It's like, you guys aren't my only author friends. And I love when my author friends show something new that they're out, or they do that whole, 10 years ago, I wrote this, and you should totally see this style of writing compared to my current style of writing, how I've evolved, so that way I can share their things, because the thing is, I know personally how hard it is to hit that shameless plug button on Facebook. It's like, I'd really love one of my friends to answer that question with my link, but unfortunately I have to be the one to plug that link, because then it feels like you're over marketing when you're really not. You're marketing like 10% of what you should be doing, but it's one of those of that's the only way to get it out there, is just to be your own best cheerleader.
Yes, and the thing I'd like to add to that is please remember that as dirty as you feel, as ashamed as you feel while you're splattering this stuff all over social media, just remember this. They're using you more than you are using them. That is the plain and simple fact. And if you don't believe me, then for anybody who is a struggling author, try this experiment. Go to your favorite search engine. It doesn't matter if it's Google or DuckDuckGo or anything else, and just type in your name.
Yeah.
And you will see that if your name pops up on any social media platform somewhere, the chances are 99% that it's there because you put it there. That is the plain and simple fact. And the going back to what Jim said, the core thing is you have to absolutely let people know that you're out there, let them know you exist. And there are a lot of ways to do this, and quite a few of them cost no money, which I'm all for. I'm very big into. I recommend not spending money to just about anybody who will listen to me.
Right.
But there are also some things that do involve the spending of money, and that's always a personal choice. So that's why I'm trying to keep it focused to begin with here on what you do to not spend money. So Jim, what else do you do to not spend money but to promote a podcast?
Pretty much in that regards is basically like on a podcast, part of the marketing is I invite people on, because that way if I have somebody on to talk about their product, ideally you'd assume that they would share that link that's bragging on their product without them having to brag on themselves. So that way I'm bumping into their social circle. So that way their social circle gets, co-opted and shared with me is my social circle. And hopefully if they like that episode, they'll listen to another episode. And if they really like that, they'll jump on our Patreon page and they'll say, hey, can I get in on one of the games? And then they become part of my friend circle as well as my social circle. So that way it's one of those of we can share, we can vibrate ideas off of each other. We can, basically, force multiply with each other. It's one of those
No.
of, what's good for me is probably good for you. And, like in the old dark ages, we form a guild to support each other's interests, so that way we can, I'm on, Skype, I'm on Twitter, and all of a sudden I see something that you like. So I poke and I click and I tweet and I send that thing out there to somebody else to see. And basically we spread our wings and let people see that's out there. And a like, a comment, and a share is free. I mean, it's as much as it takes, that 5 minutes to do all three usually. It's typically free, and because you do it, it's actually showing the algorithms, which I can't stand them, but that's what they're there for, that's what people are interested in, so it'll actually let another person see it.
I know John's got something to say on that.
I agree. I mean, you guys are so eloquent. I'm just like, wow. What can I add? It's important to try new stuff. My publisher has hinted that Amazon is trying new stuff, and I'm looking at a lot of the fancy-dancy new audiobook programs where you can select voices. Instead, audiobooks can be so expensive. Instead of renting a studio for 3 or 4 days, finding 2 voice actors, a female and a male, and getting all the equipment and everything, that could easily turn into $10,000, and that's how it's always been done.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of brand new programs and stuff out there that are coming out where you can actually select voices and put it into a Word document, or again, you got to try new stuff, and like James and both of you have said, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, all these wonderful search engines, Google, Mozilla, you got to use everything. You just got to be your own cheerleader. You got to get out there, and I wave my giant map of Palomar, and I'm like, hey, everybody, this is Palomar now. Shall I start on how I created Palomar, or is that getting too specific and too greedy?
No.
Let's kind of hold to the task at hand here, because we're making Jim look good. So,
absolutely.
Everything you just said applies to what Jim does as a podcaster, and everything that Jim said applies to us as authors. And I'll go throw 2 more logs on the fire, because in the same way that you, Jim, have got to get this podcast out through as many different venues as possible. I personally, I have my own blog as me as the author. I have a company blog so that I write as the voice of my company. And I have a YouTube channel where I produce and post deliberately cheesy videos. I have no talent with this. I have no talent with special effects, but I can stand there in front of the camera, and I can wear makeup, and I can wear costumes, and I can do a little bit of LARPing for 10, 15 minutes, and I can still make the point. And when it's all done, none of it cost me a dime, but because these things go out through the same sort of channels that Jim uses, it is just like he said, it is the magnification of the voice. So when you're standing there on your hill and you're waving the map of Palomar, it's like having a huge bonfire behind you, and people can see you for miles.
Yes.
You've lit the fires.
Well, let's see. I'm excited about my 2 books. I'm excited about I have 5 books out now and 2 coming out. Jim knows that I can go on for hours about my books. So.
Well, this is probably the first he's ever heard about it. So please continue.
What?
See, always think of it that it could be the first time that someone's ever heard about it, because you're not just talking to me. You're not just talking to Justin,
Okay. Well, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in 1977. I was not 11 years old, and I suddenly started developing my own homebrew campaign world, long before these terms were created. I developed an empire, the Palomaran Empire. Try to think England around 1100 AD, just well before gunpowder, but with the feudal society, and then throw in some ancient Rome coloring, like the uniforms and such. So I started building with my first city for my first adventurers. After a while, the adventurers were like, we want to fight pirates. So I came up with the Forsaken Islands just north of the major city. And why are they forsaken? Because everybody else moves south in the continent. So, and then I just started developing my continent from the city west, east, and south. And after Jim, I know, has heard this story many times, but in 2012, I was running a Dungeons and Dragons game, and a friend invited his spouse, his wife, to join us. And I was a little worried at first because, sometimes when a spouse, it doesn't matter the gender, sometimes when a spouse joins a game and they're bored, then they start working on the spouse. Why do you waste time with that game? It's no fun. Like, why don't you stay home? So, but the opposite happened. Arthur invited his wife, Laura. Laura fell in love with D&D. She started devouring everything, borrowing my books, looking at all the papers and all the adventures that I've done in the past. And she was like, John, have you ever thought of writing a book about all this? And I was like, yeah, right. Write a book. What a stupid idea. What a silly, oh, God, that would kill thousands of hours. It'd spend thousands of dollars. And why would I want to write books? And then I stopped and I began to think. And I'm like, that's a great idea. So my homebrew campaign setting became the setting for all of my fiction fantasy books. I love swords and sorcery fantasy work. And with the multiverse, of course, with other dimensions, I mean, you can pretty much bring anything you want at any time into a campaign setting. And I've been having a blast since then, and I've been putting out a book a year until COVID. Like I say, I wrote a lot in 2020. I have 2 books ready. So even though I had a book, my first 5 books, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, I'm all set with book 6 and book 7. As soon as we can get, as soon as my publisher is able to focus on me and finish the work of the authors in front of me. And then, so yes, I plan to keep writing as long as I can.
Which, that is fantastic. I mean, honestly, I would love to write at least a source book or 2 for some of the game books, but sadly I keep running different games, so I have so little time to actually sit down and put all the 15 different notepad files that I've been running with these games together for a source book or something. But that's eventually, that is my goal at some point when things slow down actually running games, is to start codifying and putting some kind of book out there, at least like a PDF. I usually have my players, I call them just the fluff book. It's the writer's Bible put into a fluff book for the players to, here's a reminder of what you're doing. But writing is eventually one of my goals eventually. So I bow my head in respect to you guys about actually that you kicked yourselves in the ass to get writing and to make something. And both of you guys are extremely prolific in your writing. I mean, the amount of books that you guys have come out with.
And people ask me all the time, where do you get your ideas for writing? And I'm like, have you played D&D for a while? I mean, and you know what? My publisher and I joke about what I'm about to say all the time. Sometimes our characters talk to us, whether we're just waking up after a nice good night's sleep, or we're driving to work and we're just we're driving, but we're thinking, okay, how can I make this next chapter better, or what can I do here? And it's amazing. Sometimes I've gotten my best ideas for books when I'm literally just waking up early in the morning and trying to get ready, and I'm, with the morning ablutions and stuff. I'm like, wow, That's a great idea. I should have that character do that.
You've got that total fugue state going where, you're not quite awake, but you're not quite asleep. So the mind can freely run with any stray thought it's got.
Mm-hmm. I actually keep a little notepad next to my bed, and I jot down things so I remember them later.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Once, just from like a role-playing center, when your character's in your head and it's taking up space back there in its own little house, it'll tell you what the character will and wouldn't do. And it's like when they talk about writers, they betrayed the character, because that's actually a thing where the character has its own motivations and personality, and you've got to respect them in their own voice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That is very true. But I can also tell you that fluff book you talk about, if you ever wanted foundational material for a universe to write in, whether it's fiction or a role-playing game, that thing that you call a fluff book, it's ready-made material waiting to happen. Mm-hmm. I have a similar document, and people who know me still talk about it. I call it the World Book. And sometimes, depending entirely on what I've had to drink, it's the world according to Justin. But it, I think at last count, I'm not joking, I'm thinking there was it contained something like 140 folders.
Mm-hmm.
And about 1,400 individual documents, and it still forms the basis for the ongoing second edition D&D campaign. But I cloned the concept about 30 years ago, and I started building the World Book for what eventually became AC After Collapse, and we played Gamma World and Aftermath and Morrow Project and in more recent decades the reboots of Twilight 2000 and Mutant Future and other things like that, and slowly over time I very cleverly labeled it World Book Annex, so that anybody who ever saw it on my tablet or on my PC hard drive would have no reason to think anything about it, and it just hid in plain sight for decades before anything happened. And I did actually, when we were in the early design phase for the game, we had several people who would just show up for the work session, look at me and say, I don't understand. Mm-hmm. So I ended up writing an entire novel, which is a Haven's Legacy. Uh-huh. But I ended up writing a novel, and I said, here, look at this, and so instead of presenting it to them as a role-playing game and 3 whiteboards full of math, they got to read they got to read a 220-page novel. Oh, now I get it. Yeah, okay, all right. So,
and you just hit the nail on the head with my next project, Justin. I'm developing a fantasy role-playing supplement. God, that sounds like a fancy title. But when I was a boy, all we had was Blackmore and the World of Greyhawk, the World of Greyhawk Gazetteer.
Tell us your pain.
What?
Tell us your pain.
Yes. And, well, again, I want to design my own World of Greyhawk Gazetteer with maps, little histories, lists, almost like J.R.R. Tolkien's appendixes, and make it available. The system almost doesn't matter. You can, oh God, whether it's GURPS, whether it's Traveler, whether it's space opera, whether it's Babylon 5, Star Wars, Top Secret, even Toon. Oh, Toon was a fun game. The important thing And you're right, Justin. It's not the white sheet with all the math on it. The important thing is that you want to make it appealing to as many people as possible. And I'm actually in the process of developing an FRGP, fantasy role-playing game supplement, FRGPS, for Palomar. So anyone could buy it, read it, and say, "Wow, I could set a game in these 4 continents." Ooh.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I like it, and I wish you the best with it. The only contrarian thing I would like to put on the table for consideration is the attribution of game system, because there are 2 things that remain constant no matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're John Paul Ried or TSR or Wizards of the Coast, for that matter. The fact is that you'll never make everybody happy, and gamers mod. So no matter what game system you choose, yes, as long as you give proper attribution, there will be no lawyer showing up at your doorstep. But no matter what game system you choose, they're going to tear it all apart, and they're going to do it their way anyway. So as long as you understand that going in, you'll be a lot saner. And the last point I would like to make, just because I did this myself, I love post-apocalyptic games. I've got an entire file cabinet full of post-apocalyptic games, and I had 2 whiteboards here in my office for years that was basically, it was every single attribute of all the known post-apocalyptic role-playing games, and on each whiteboard, right at the very big block letters, do not do this. Yeah. If you want to be different, then you can, if you truly want to be different, other than just saying, hey, this is a 5e supplement based on my literary universe, if you're comfortable with that, if you're cool with it, then by all means do it. But don't be surprised if you get the itch to want to do more. And if that happens, then by all means, go ahead, develop your own game system. Just like you said, it doesn't matter what it is. Right. But if you could call it the John Paul Ried system, then it's yours. And every time you go on a podcast, maybe like this one, then you can always say, this is my own creation. This is my own thing. I don't care if anybody uses it. Just give me proper attribution, etc. And in the long run, I think that from the business standpoint, you always give yourself something to talk about, because if all you say is, this is my 5e version of Palomar, then the conversation is almost over with right there, because everybody knows what 5e is. But if you say, this is my own game system, they don't know what that is. So you force them to talk about it.
And that's the problem, Justin. That's why game systems don't matter. You said it yourself. Nobody wants to take the time to learn a new gaming system. There are hundreds of gaming systems out there that people are much more comfortable and familiar with. Why reinvent the wheel? The important thing is the setting, the nations, the politics, the history, the interaction of nobles and commoners, for example, or the time travel or interdimensional travel like Michael Moorcock, or the sweeping epic scope of Tolkien, or even the very intimate and personal animal-human relations from C.S. Lewis. These, again, the game system really doesn't matter, as you said, because most players will take a game system and modify it to suit their own needs anyway. So.
Just because I want to start a fight, what does the master podcaster have to say on that subject?
Washington Beacon Review, McLaughlin, this is great.
See, me personally, as a GM that's always out there wanting to try new systems, because I can say things like, okay, I love Genesis system, which is the new Star Wars system, is because they use narrative dice, so players are forced to actually volunteer when they do something that sucks or something that's great, what their suggestions are. And then you've got, because I joke with friends, I'm a longtime D&D player, but D&D is play by numbers. It's you roll a dice and you add a number. Genesis dice, it adds an additional step. Then you've got, for what I call the advanced role players, the Fate system for Fate, which, by the way, is like Justin was talking about. I do love the writers of Fate because they literally made their game system and then threw it out to the world saying, by the way, like, it's free online. And if you want to support us, here's some supplement books. And that's one of those systems where the player has to say, because I'm the only wizard in the Chicago Yellow Pages, my character gets a +2. So you basically have to use your character's not stats, but actual story points to get in regards to, you don't have strength, but you're the strongest Aikido fighter in your block, so you have aspects of your character that give you stats. So I think new game rules are a cool thing to try as long as you're making the game rules to do what you need for your game. Because when it comes to a game, the rules need to support the narrative.
Right. You modify the system to please to give your players a familiar framework. Absolutely. Yes. And that, again, I think we're all pretty much in agreement. We're all saying the same things, just from different angles. But again, I love a little controversy. This is fun.
Well, then, since you do like controversy, tell us how is your game system going to represent Palomar?
Well, again, not only do I use all the editions of D&D, not just 5th edition, because try fifth edition for psionics. They've tried it several times. It's collapsed. They're trying again now, and I'm not optimistic.
I think the technical term for that is.
Yeah, but the first edition psionic rules actually are viable and fairly simple if you really take the time to look at them carefully and see how they work. And I combine elements of all 5 editions of D&D. I throw in GURPS occasionally because, hey, 100-sided dice is a great way to it's a lot better than just a 20-sided die. It's amazing to me how many players suddenly roll a natural 20 when it's really crucial. So always get them to roll the percentile dice. It's like, aha, I see that 3. Is that a 37 or is that a 73? Right? But yeah. The system doesn't matter. What's important is your players and whether you engage them in your story, whether the characters that they have feel engaged, like, wow, I can achieve this. I can recruit some followers. If I'm a thief, a rogue, I can recruit some followers and start my own Godfather family. Or if you're a wizard, oh wow, I want to gain all this super spell knowledge from my spell books, and then start my own school like the Game Masters University for my books. Or I want my own tower, or I want my own dungeon, or I want my own army, or find what the players want and present them different ways to get what they want. I'm delighted that so many people are so familiar. I love experimenting too. I like the Babylon 5 role playing system from the TV show. That was fun, and of course there are thousands of systems already out there. So why reinvent the wheel? And when you've got so many systems out there, and and you're right, you got to watch out for legalities. I mean, one person who can afford a lawyer sees the system you're doing, and gee, that sounds a lot like the one I did 5 years ago, and I have copyright papers to prove it. Then you got a mess on your hands. So better do. My humble opinion, and Justin, I'll be quiet so you can respond. My humble opinion is there are plenty of usable systems out there that many people are familiar with that you can use freely without legal issues. And best of all of my books, well, okay, I can talk about my books again, but give me a moment to talk about my books a little later. I'll describe each of my 5 in just a few sentences. Each one has a different focus. and appeals to a different group of people. But again, to Justin, to hand you the baton, I want to hear why your game system is so important when there's a gazillion other game systems that people are more familiar with out there. How do you get people to look at your system and say, wow, that really is simpler or better or more effective? How do you do that?
Well, now, just to prove to the audience that I did not hand you a live hand grenade, I'd like to point out that my website address is justinoldham.com, and that you can click on the contact button, you can send me an email, and you can say anything you want to me about the nature of this discussion. What do you like about the AC after collapse rules? What do you hate about them, etc.? But the bottom line is, anybody who does that, they'll be talking about my stuff because it's not anybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one reason why it matters. The only people who are going to buy Justin Oldham's carefully constructed post-apocalyptic role-playing game are the people who are into that stuff. And when they open it up, there's going to be that little person in the back of their mind that's going to say, all right, okay, what is this a one-off of? What are we? And they're going to turn the page, and the little man's head is going to explode because I've never seen this before. And they'll just keep turning the pages and go, yeah, I know what this is. I know what that is too. And but because it is not everybody else's formulas who came before me, what are they going to do? Some of them, oh man, they're going to complain to the heavens. Why did you do this? Other people are going to say, I'm just speechless. I don't know. I just have to buy the next thing, whatever it is. That, in a nutshell, is my argument for why the game system actually does matter. And oh, by the way, when you happen to own all the copyrights and you happen to have all the trademarks, bring it on.
Yep. And again, Justin, I think what you're saying is perfectly valid. I guess I come from a different school where I want to write a good story. I want to share my fun with other people. Like, let me give you an example. Each one of my 5 books so far has a different focus that's meant to appeal to a different group of people. And when people read my books, they're like, wow, I get contacted a lot by fans. When's the next book coming out? Or when's the next game are you running? I want to play. Anyway, my first book is a political intrigue book, Reckless Ambitions. Everyone plotting against everybody else. So the old popular and respected emperor just died, and there are 4 ambitious sons. Ooh boy, who's going to be emperor next? And I have to kill my brothers, otherwise they'll kill me. So the first book is my political intrigue book with plots, counterplots, military coups, assassination attempts, things like that. My suspense thriller, if you will. My second book is more my military Civil War style book. I set up a huge Gettysburg-like battle for Palomar, and the tactics become important. Like, okay, which cavalry will get to that high hill first? Or, we have to... Anyway, that's my second book, the military tactics book. And my third book, there we have pirates and a sea-ocean adventure with a great invasion of evil humanoids attacking Palomar. And then the third book, that's called Pivotal Ruckus. That's my ocean adventure. My fourth book, Academic Mayhem. That's my interdimensional adventure with the Game Masters University. And then finally, my fifth book is my trashy romance book with the most unlikely pair of lovers you could possibly imagine. A lawful good, chivalrous, and noble paladin with a wicked, evil, amoral, crazy, insane, killer anti-paladin, and they both fall in love. Opposites attract. So,
are you actually trying to tell me that paladins like the bad girls? Yeah. And a lot of people seem to be responding to it. It's funny. My
my last book, Unexpected Entanglements, that's the trashy romance, that does seem to appeal to a lot more ladies. The ladies enjoy the trashy romance angle. And again, Paula Abdul was right. Opposites attract. Well, okay. But yes, I believe if you write a good story, if you write a fun story, you share it with people. Wow, look at this real great book and this wonderful tale. Oh, wow, keep reading. Yo, you want the next book? Here you go. Oh, wow. Then you can get them hooked on your D&D game or whatever game system you want to push. Yeah.
Well, for those of us who do like to get paid, I will say in all sincerity that there is a synergistic relationship between role-playing games, the published material, and novels and anthologies based on the universe.
I agree wholeheartedly to that, because all of your written works then become source material for the RPG.
Exactly.
Yes, and in another life, I wanted to be a historian. Okay, long story short, that didn't happen. That's just how it went. But
it's so hard to make money as a historian.
I picked up a lot of academic point of view, and so long time ago, even before I was ready to jump off this cliff and do this, I realized that exactly what you said there, Jim, that your novels, your literature, it can be the canon for your universe. Yes. And you do have the opportunity to actually intertwine the two things, so that just for example, when people happen to be looking at AC After Collapse Small Arms Volume 1, mm-hmm. there is a text box, and it talks about a present day post collapse mystery in a certain location relating to a cache of very valuable automatic weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, all right. Now, if you happen to read the anthology, let's see, it's during the collapse, Volume 1, you'll actually find out how that cache of arms got there. If you read the after the collapse, Volume 1, you'll read in the anthology the lucky post-collapse rascals who actually got to find that stuff. So if AGM decides that they want to include that actual location in their game, if the ammunition vault is empty, then if you've already read the books, you know why. You know who you know who the bastards are that beat you to it. But if the ammunition vault is not empty and that loot is there, ooh, it makes you want to stop and go back and read the other short stories going, where is that place on the map? I now have a sudden itch to go there.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
just so everybody knows, I'm here.
Oh, hello.
Hey!
Evan here?
Yes.
That's Evan.
I didn't want to interrupt everybody. You guys were really deep in conversation. But I've been lurking in the background.
Hey guys, Jim here. So we got gabbing like crazy on this episode, and since Evan did just join in, I was going to go ahead and figure we'll make this a part 1, part 2, and I'll go ahead and split the recording into part 1, part 2. And I figured here's a good stopping off point since we're having to introduce Evan to everybody, and then we'll be picking up in just a few minutes. Please check out part 2 of Marketing in the Apocalypse. Or, what have you been doing for the first half of 2021? Alright guys, like always, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to D&D Journey of the 5th Edition, a member of the Creative Play and Podcast Network. Please follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/CPPN to never miss a show or stream.
Hello, this is Eric.
And Wendy Strock with Stone Valley Hobby and Games.
We sell board games, card games, role-playing games, and supplies. We have thousands of Magic the Gathering cards available, carry Kickstarter products, and work with veteran-owned small businesses to bring you our own line of products.
We are a small business retailer, but we offer competitive prices, a loyalty system, and free shipping on orders over $100.
As a military veteran myself, I'm a strong supporter of our armed forces, their families, and contractors out there doing the hard job. So any order from an AA, AE, or EP address will be shipped absolutely free.
Remember, StoneValleyGames.com, where we take your leisure seriously.